Is this thing on? Today's is going to be a little bit controversial. Uh, I think the term regime change might have been in the news for a few days. I'm making a bet that it is. And I want to go over ideas around regime change, both in sort of the international scholarship of conflict and and the ideas sort of why and why not. So, with regards to why regime change occurs, it's an attempt to move power away from a particular source. Um, in democratic cultures, this is contested through elections. It's contested through politicking in a more public sense. But the politicking in a regime that does not hold elections is a little bit different. It's more centralized. It's within a few institutions that sort of determine where the seat of power lies, and thus sort of gets the less trusting, the less supportive in sort of most Western thought circles, that such systems are not necessarily good for the overall culture, because you're really only focusing on sort of a select group of people in order to be that source of power. And so when a regime change occurs, which can occur within a state or from another invading state, that regime change is a potential power vacuum, because there would be other individuals, other actors within the political system that may want that power, that may seek that power. And in doing so, you risk disruption, you risk chaos, you risk sending more people away from the state that they're residing in out of fear of being persecuted, out of fear of being in a crossfire of a conflict. So those are the risks of regime change. But what causes sort of actors to seek it often can relate to whether they think there's more potential disruption and chaos by not doing so, by allowing the seat of power, to remain in place. So those are sort of what leads the decisions, but there's also theories as to around why conflict occurs. There's sort of a perspective that it relates to domestic power, that within an incumbency itself of a particular state, of a particular geographical body, the seat of power will want to divert any negative feelings, any negative emotions, any negative action against their incumbency towards an action that will generate unity and support for their power, support for their leadership in an international system. So oftentimes it's a quick military action with a decisive victory that is seen as, hey, we have strength, hey, we have power, hey, let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that and forget about these other things. But then there's also sort of an academic perspectives, a long list of academic perspectives that decide that the international system itself is a source of conflict, that the lack of an all-powerful state on the international system is what leads countries to seek hegemony, seek power within their own regional spheres. And in doing so, it can lead to two very different but also underlying ways to get to chaos. One relates to deterrence, the other relates to sort of aggression, but overall, power is a proximate goal. It is not the ultimate goal. Holding power is not a purposeful action for a state. It is power is the proximate goal, but the end goal is the ultimate goal is security. You want the state to avoid chaos, and in doing so, two things can happen simultaneously. First is sort of the lack of deterrence of an aggressor. If there is an aggressive challenger within the international system, then not deterring that challenger can lead it to become more aggressive. Continuing the aggression is what happens when a threat chooses to use aggression as a tactic to gain its own, to shift its own standing within an international system. The other is both parties are not necessarily wanting to become aggressive, but building up aggression as a means to demonstrate superior strength leads to a spiral of chaos that leads to conflict. Which of these situations are this regime change situation existing in? And the reality is, you can never really know for certain unless you unlock the mythical ability of telepathy, of being able to read the minds of those with power. I don't think that's ever going to happen. So without such ability, how do you have strong enough evidentiary support to stake a claim on diversion, on deterrence, on security spirals? How do you stake those claims? That's a problem with any theoretical system in the behavior of humans. We have humans that'll disagree. We have humans that will say, no, that's not right, this is right. No, that's not the way the world is. This is the way the world is. And in reality, you just have to discern both can be equal. Both can be correct. Both motivation could be at play for a choice of regime change. But there's still much risks in regime change. And just talking about the risks is fine. Talking about the potential for dissidents to not enjoy the choice of the change. There might be people to enjoy the choice of the change and the methods of how it came to be. So this idea of regime change exists in a system of power. Power fundamentally is the ability to determine who gets what, when, and where. Or you could also say power is the ability to make people do what they would not do otherwise. But there's conflicting visions, there's contradictory information. Listen to those who say they don't have all the answers, because no one does. No one ever has all the answers. What they do have is perspectives. And some perspectives at times can be more right than other perspectives. So, thank you so much for watching. It's amazing that you spend 10 minutes listening to me talk. Thank you for your time, for your energy, for your focus, and definitely would like to see you next time.